it just you, or are we waiting for someone else?
I'm sorry, what?
Your hands. If you really work the power lines down there, your hands wouldn't look like that. I know we gotta be waiting for somebody else.
Oh. Hands where I can see him. We take a little walk across the street, me and you. Black Denali.
Here we go.
He varies these instructions and I'm gonna kill you, understand? All right.
Welcome to Franchise Killer, a podcast where we pick movie franchises or wannabe franchises, review them film by film, and see where things went wrong. Or right. What was that supposed to be?
That Russian guy.
It did not sound Russian.
I know, right. Or late.
Or late. Vodka.
Or vodka.
That's the most stereotypical way you could go with that.
I'm Reese. To my left is
David.
Further off to my left,
Irina.
Across from me,
You couldn't think of a single name, could you?
They're all Russian, so they slipped.
Slavi.
Slavi.
Also known as
Noah.
That was really poor. Noah, your preparation for even this most minuscule of bits is astounding.
You could be Samuel L. Jackson.
So to be fair,
David.
To be fair, you didn't research anything.
The thing is, I think about these things, and I isolate a name while I'm watching the movie, and then the moment my clutch time comes, my brain just
choke.
Nice.
Vladimir Puchuski.
And playing with power tools in a dimly lit hardware store, we have...
Hey, Jay.
You gotta wear gloves next time, man.
I mean, I've got the eyewear. That's all about that PPE.
Yes.
That's one thing I wondered about this movie. Like, how did he get away with all this?
True, but
He wiped everything clean because he's OCD.
There you go.
And, of course, the movie we're talking about is The Equalizer, a 2014 film directed by Antoine Fuqua, who also directed Training Day, The Magnificent Seven, Shooter, Olympus Has Fallen, The Replacement Killers, and King Arthur.
Which one?
The 2004 version.
Ah, okay.
We've covered it.
Yeah, we did.
Yep.
Is that why you're asking about power tools?
What'd you watch, AJ?
I thought that was just an incidental question. True Lies?
I get to watch the movie that we are watching next time, AJ.
That ended with some kind of Jamaican accent.
Yeah, man, you got to watch the movie
it's
we
tough
are
to find
watching.
a sound alike, but that's what I got.
So 4 of us watched The Equalizer, and you watched True Lies. You might not have much to say during this episode, but I'll try to, throw a couple at you every now and then just to see what you have. Anyway, this movie stars Denzel Washington, Martin Sokas,
Not short.
Chloe Grace Moritz, David Harbour, Bill Pullman, and Melissa Leo. And it's written by Richard Wenk, or Vink, or Wink, or something.
Not Winkler.
And it's based off The Equalizer, a TV show from the mid-'80s. It went from 85 to 89, and that show is created by Michael Sloan and Richard Lindheim. This is something I could have done a better job of researching for this episode, but did anyone do anything to research on this what this show is, or how this movie?
80s kind of spy. Well, not spy, but I've seen a couple of episodes. I actually saw those before I even knew about this movie.
Is it a Knight Rider type thing where it's
kind of? I mean, there are actually a lot of big names. It's kind of one of those shows that had a bunch of pull for star power at the day. So I don't know.
Yeah, I going into this movie, I had no knowledge of the Equalizer TV show. I was just like, oh, this is the next Denzel Washington vehicle. Didn't think it was based off anything. Went to the Wikipedia page, like kind of half-heartedly looked at, what was the cast and everything, and it was like based on, the Equalizer TV show from the mid-'80s. It's okay. It's
like,
I guess
right.
Didn't realize that. But yeah, I might call back to you, AJ, a couple of times throughout this episode to see if there's any, or you can just interject at any point if there's something you want to say that, we're talking about, and it's like, that was kind of like the show or whatever.
All right, I have a question to pose to the group, though.
Yeah.
All right, across the board, do we consider our main protagonist a vigilante?
I would say definitely, yes.
All right, Irina, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd say yes.
Noah?
I would say yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
but
You seem...
I could be convinced another direction.
He is straight up John Wick Robin Hood.
Oh, hold on.
Like, that
We
is-
still have AJ.
Okay, AJ.
Yes. I mean, that's the whole,
So we have 4 people saying vigilante.
the whole concept of why he calls himself the Equalizer is basically vigilantism.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you had your point, but I was doing some research on the director, Denzel, and there was an interview that happened. So I'm just going to kind of take you through the way they see the main protagonist here. So the interviewer, the Equalizer's idea of justice is almost literally an eye for an eye, but surely vigilantism isn't recommended in the real world. And the director says, no, but this guy doesn't go out and hurt people. They come after him. He's not out killing people, hunting for the next guy. That's vigilante. That's not this guy. So the director says, or the interviewer says, taking the law into your own hands. He does that, doesn't he? He goes, yeah, but let me ask you a question. If you saw a kid being bullied on and you went over to some kid and said, stop doing that, and they got aggressive and you had to push one of them against the wall to make them stop, is that a vigilante? And the guy goes, I guess not. I guess that's just being a good citizen. So he responded with, so he's just a good citizen.
Also a vigilante.
So you would consider that kid stopping a bully a vigilante?
Okay, we're going to get into this, and I don't want to touch on this too much just yet, because we'll get into it in the meat of the story. But there's straight up, the middle section of this movie where he is, going out of his way to find crime. He's literally, looking for crime in the night. There's 2 crimes he solves in the middle of this movie that aren't even related to the main plot.
But not once did he shoot somebody. Not once.
No,
Okay.
vigilante doesn't necessarily mean you have to
Nail
kill
gun.
or shoot someone.
Am I? Yeah, nail gun doesn't count. But also, I'm just gonna say, not once does he not give them an out.
Yeah, but the thing is, vigilante is basically enforcing their own idea of justice and overlooking the rules of the government or
He's
the
also
way a
breaking
place is
laws.
run. Yeah. So he may be morally correct, but he's still taking it into his own hands.
What law did he break?
David, we're not having...
We were having this conversation.
There are probably a number of
Oh,
laws
yes.
he broke.
He broke all the laws.
But it is more complicated than just saying,
Right,
oh,
right.
yeah, he's
I was
just
trying to
Definitely
think.
jaywalked in that one scene.
Dang it,
yeah.
you got me on that one.
Anyway, our audiences or listeners are probably wondering why we're harping so much on this vigilante thing. It's because this is our new mini-series. We're talking about vigilante / hitman, or hitwoman movies. And this is the first one. And I think this is squarely... This is the cut and dry definition of what a vigilante movie is. There is nothing gray about this to me. David sees it for some reason. I don't know why. But
Reese is wrong, and you can tell us that when you shout it out to us.
But yeah, this is the first vigilante movie we're covering, The Equalizer. And if you're new to this podcast, on this podcast we first go over our thoughts on the film before revisiting it for the episode. Then we dive into the story, break it down bit by bit, and talk about the more significant moments. Then towards the end of the show we give our brief reviews and numbered scores, along with an analysis on the health of the franchise and whether or not this film hurt it. So guys, had y'all seen The Equalizer before your viewing of the film this episode? AJ?
No, I had not. I had always kind of had them on the back burner of my to-do list, but I had not seen it until decided to cover it.
Sounds good. Noah?
No.
I feel like this is going to be a clean sweep of no's for this movie. I'm just going to call that.
Yeah.
Arena?
Yes, I had seen it
What?
before.
I should.
Hey, gotta
Edit that out.
cut it now.
Yeah, but only once before.
Okay.
It was one of those like I don't know, Saturday afternoon hanging out with mom moments where she's like, "Oh, this is Denzel Washington. This looks good," and we just put it on. So I watched it with my mom and my sister.
That's
so.
a classic.
Yeah.
though.
Wait, this isn't
like-
Remember the Titans.
Is it? Is it not?
It did have Denzel Washington.
I
That's
don't
a
know.
connection.
He's teaching a guy how to be good at athletics.
Yeah, he does have a similar energy to that one.
It's like if that coach decided to just go work at Home Mart,
Home Depot
Home Depot.
or wherever.
It's called Home
It's called
Mart.
Home Mart.
That's
yeah.
such a Home Mart.
Walmart with homes.
Yeah. How about you, David? Had you seen this?
Nope, I didn't even know it was a movie.
Yeah. And I am in the same boat as AJ. This has been like on the back burner for me to watch because, you know, it has a following.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever the Equalizer movie came out, I was like, "Oh, this looks like a fun little I thought it was a revenge thriller. And it turns out it kind of is, but also not really.
Like Taken?
It's, so
Yeah.
I thought it was just another one of those, but I was like, I'm always down for a good Denzel Washington movie, but just for some reason
You
never
mean
got
just
around to
a
it.
movie?
Yes.
Because it's always good
Yeah.
when he's in it.
With that said, David, you want to give us that call to action there?
I'm gonna do that, but I'm gonna try a different approach this time. So I'm gonna speed through the main stuff and then get to something completely pointless. All right, so 5 stars. Go on Apple Podcast. We need it. It's really good for us. Well, yeah,
David,
yeah.
no, I have to cut this. That's the stuff they have to hear.
Oh, that's what you want them to hear.
Yes.
Oh, well, you can find us on Apple Podcasts. That is one of the biggest things that can help out this podcast. We do this at a deficit. We do this for you guys. And the little bit that we ask for is if you like us, go out there and tell us. It helps us. It boosts us in the ratings. And we like to try to get this to more and more people. So the little bit you could do is that.
And what should they do on Apple Podcasts?
A 5-star review.
Yes.
Maybe say something. Say something you like.
Give us like a brief sentence.
Yeah.
Say something.
Yeah. Okay, you're right. This does sound better than what I originally had planned. So thank you.
Do you love me?
But we also
You were just
have-
going to go into another argument about vigilantes.
It's not a vigilante. No, I'm just kidding.
Could you learn
could
to
be.
love me?
All right. So, but also we have an Instagram. I just started posting on YouTube, so I can actually say that now. So I've been posting all of our retroactive episodes.
Older episodes.
Yeah, that's better.
Retroactive.
They're not retroactive, are they? I'm slowly but surely getting caught up to the ones that we are doing currently. So if you feel like watching your podcast, then there you go. Wow.
Are you ready to get into that story?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Yo, Pop, bet you didn't have to push no dollies at your old job, did you?
Guilty as charged. Can you do a refund for me when you're done?
Open the register up right now. Move. Give me that ring.
No, it was my mother. Please.
It's okay, Jenny.
What's she knowing about?
It is about a guy who's a knight in shining armor, except he lives in a world where knights don't exist anymore.
My ring.
Think you can be anything you want to be. Change your world. I promised I would never go back to being that person. But when somebody does something unspeakable to someone you hardly knew, you do something about it. Because you can. I mean about a girl. 16 seconds. Seconds.
Bob McCall is a retired Marine and former Defense Intelligence Agency operative who faked his death after promising his now-deceased wife, Vivian, that he would leave his old life behind. For the last few decades, McCall has lived a quiet life in Boston working at a Home Mart hardware store, where he befriends many of his co-workers and helps a friend named Ralphie pass his qualification exam to become a security guard. Unable to sleep, McCall spends some late nights reading in a 24/7 diner where he befriends Alina, a teenage prostitute working for the Russian mafia. One night, Alina is hospitalized after being brutally beaten by her pimp, Slavi. Hearing of the beating, McCall visits Alina's hospital room and speaks with her friend Mandy. McCall visits Slavi and offers to pay $9,800 for Alina's freedom. Slavi refuses, dismissing McCall as old and impotent. McCall then kills Slavi and 4 of his men with skillful close combat efficiency, using the men's own weapons, various objects in the office, and his bare hands.
And his bare hands. Wow, that lined up really well.
I know, right?
All right, Robert Bob McCall, Denzel Washington.
So McCall, is that Scottish?
I don't know.
And McCall, that's Scottish.
Not Irish?
No, I think Mick. I don't know.
Maybe he
Actually,
just
you might
liked
be right.
it, and that's his new name.
Where are we going with this, guys?
I definitely feel...
Of all the things to talk about in this movie.
Honestly, I was thinking that the whole movie, so I figured why not bring it up when we hear his name.
She's right, though.
Gaelic.
He is a Robert more than he is a Bob.
Well, he was originally supposed to be played by, I think Russell Crowe was trying to get this.
And Gerard Butler.
Yeah, Russell Crowe was actually really invested in trying to get this movie made, though. And then Gerard Butler once that fell through, Gerard Butler was like, oh, yeah, maybe I'll do it. Yeah. But we ultimately landed... It landed in Antoine Fuqua's lap, and he wanted Denzel Washington for the part.
Really? I don't know why. I swear I read that it fell into Denzel Washington, and then he had a different director, and when that director fell out, he actually asked Fuqua to do it.
Yeah.
So Denzel Washington got the role. Debatably, he wasn't super invested, but I think contractually he needed another movie, so he jumped on this one. And then they had a different director. They had like a slew of directors that were supposed to do this. Yeah.
Regardless, I think he was perfect for the role.
Yeah, he was.
He brings this up, as you've said.
He got
before,
invested.
Reese.
Denzel?
Yeah, Denzel.
Yeah, so Denzel Washington's a curious actor because I think he is amazing in every... I won't say amazing, but he's Denzel in every movie that he is.
Yeah.
And Denzel happens to be a very likable persona or / actor or whatever. Like,
he's the father figure we all want.
Yeah, there's something comforting about his presence in a film where you feel like you're safe to watch it.
And the whole time throughout this movie, from the very start, I was like, okay, this is kind of like your standard revenge vigilante type movie, but just having Denzel at the center of it really elevates it.
Yeah.
Like this would be a seriously bland movie without him.
This was reminding me a lot of, or very similar to Man on Fire, where it's just kind of like that. He takes a personal interest in, helping out.
Yeah, it is kind of
a young
riffing
girl,
off of that.
basically, and so it seems like that's the kind of role he always ends up in, is like the helper for the outside helper.
Would you say it's Man on Fire meets John Wick?
Yeah, something like that.
It is, yeah.
I mean, it is it is a tried and true, I guess, kind of formula with the vigilante kind of helping out. Like even, I think that Olivia Wilde movie, The Vigilante, is the same kind of concept. Like people solicit her for help in a specific situation, and she, uses with great power comes great responsibility kind of thing.
Right.
But that's where they say, I have the skills to do this. This is my place in helping people. So
yeah.
But it is interesting to see the application and still have fun with it.
I think the thing that's so enjoyable about vigilante films, especially, or just stories in general, is the fact that they're looking out for individuals that usually feel like they're overlooked. That superhero films are on a broad scale most of the time, where they're saving the world or saving a country. But with vigilantes, they're looking out for people in the neighborhood, essentially. Yeah. So it's kind of refreshing to see someone take out the bad guys that are a little more realistic to you.
Yeah. With that said, though, I think this movie has no real layers to it at all, and that's from the very beginning. It's very on the nose. Even this character, Bob, he walks into his job at Home Mart or whatever, and then all the people he's walking past all the people are like, hey Bob,
Bob, you're great, I love you.
And he's like, how are you doing? He's like, I'm good now that you're here.
No one knows his backstory, but everybody loves him, even though he keeps to himself.
It's just,
and then he reads his books and kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, everything about this movie is fairly cliche and rote, but something about Denzel Washington makes you care about it nonetheless.
Yeah.
And I'm not
Yeah.
trying to discredit Antoine Fuqua as a director,
No.
because I actually think he's a very competent director.
He did Training Day.
Yeah, but he's more of like a journeyman director where he I don't think he has a really definitive style. He just knows how to put together a movie in an efficient, watchable way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about efficient in this particular case, but I mean, there are definitely some scenes that are directorial question marks for me. But in
Right.
general, yeah, Denzel really is the hub of this experience.
Didn't he get more invested in the directorial side?
Possibly.
I read that he got more
he
invested.
he helped out on the script. I think they were like rehashing the script as the movie was
that's
being
what it was.
shot. In fact, I think Denzel Washington was very impressed with how much research and preparation Antoine Fuqua had done. He was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, well, maybe you should play this main character."
Well, yeah, I saw that too, and I think
Yeah.
that's why he wanted Fuqua on this, because they did such a good job together in Training Day. But I also read that like the OCD thing was his choice. They decided to do that, and he researched and talked to OCD people.
Yeah, like I think his contribution was a lot of like character adjustments and
Yeah.
like just
Yeah.
fleshing out that character more, because he went into this movie and the character didn't actually have much of a backstory, so he helped fill a lot of that out, and that shows. Except I think the OCD element of this is kind of half-assed. Like, all they show about that is that he, like, adjusts the spoon on the table every now and then. Like, okay,
Yeah.
so he's...
Well,
like,
and the opening when he's like washing his sneakers with a toothbrush,
and I guess the timing of his...
Yeah.
Like, he sets the timer on his clock. But other than that, it's like, this isn't like a Monk situation where it's
Yeah.
just...
but not
It's
all
like a-
OCD people are like Monk.
Yeah, it's a functional OCD, but at the same time, it would have been just as easy to be like, oh, he's a very meticulous. I have everything
Right.
set the way I want it.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing wrong with just that.
Yeah,
You know.
I will say... go ahead.
Exactly, because OCD is one of those words that's kind of really thrown around when people don't really actually mean what that is. But yeah, he's meticulous, and they kind of could have leaned into it more to show that side of his character. And
Right.
as it was kind of just sprinkled on to
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I agree.
One of the things they could have done to bring that home is every time he, kills somebody, they could have shown his whole process cleaning that up, because that's one of kind of the plot holes in this, is that he just lets everything lie. They never show him covering up for himself.
Because everything
And-
he does is so clever that he doesn't need to.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's so
No, I'm
OCD,
with
he
Noah on
knows how
this.
to not leave a trace.
But the thing is, they could have shown that, or told the audience, hey, he's done this in this way. Or maybe if he's an OCD person, he's going to make sure everything is exactly perfect. Sure, it turns out that way in the end, but they don't really show that process.
Yeah, I'm with Noah on this. Like, he doesn't wear gloves, like he doesn't worry about fingerprints or traceability or anything like that. It's like they kind of try to tease you into that, but we don't really see that full picture until it's not like he's some,
Right.
Yeah.
hyper
Yeah.
meticulous, cover their tracks, and even like Boondock Saints, like they use ammonia to like clean up their blood so they can't identify it. I mean,
Yeah,
we didn't even
they
get
did-
anything like that.
They did half the job on here. They kind of hand wave it away with this like almost Robert Downey Sherlock Holmes like analysis of the fight scene at the
Discombobulate.
beginning, where they don't actually show what he's thinking, but he's like, okay,
Yeah.
16 seconds, which I actually kind of like that. But
I
then,
did too.
So they do like they show the OCD before the fight, but they don't, call back to it at the end of it.
They're
Right.
wanting you to read between the lines, I think, of what they established in the beginning, which isn't always good in a movie because people need to be told. I like watching it. I didn't, because I knew he was OCD in the beginning. So I was like, oh yeah, he's obviously doing that. So it didn't affect me as much. But I feel like an everyday viewer may not.
Yeah.
I didn't look
I was just saying, I was honestly fine with the level of like, the bullet time kind of stuff where he plans out and calculates everything. Like that can stand alone without
Yeah.
having the whole napkin folding and stuff. So
Yeah. No, yeah, I thought it was fine. Like, I'm glad they didn't show, like little diagrams going on in his mind, like,
Right.
calculating the
Like,
Like,
every maneuver.
John Wick didn't wipe every gun that he touched.
Yeah, I think the thing is like if you completely rule out the OCD, I think I like this little gimmick where he is timing everything,
Yeah.
and I think it's because like in my mind it's because he would do this kind of thing so often that he's like, I know exactly what I'm doing. I've done this 100 times. It's in my like muscle memory. So he's like an athlete. He's just kind of testing himself, you know.
Yeah, he's trying to keep himself sharp to, maintain his skills. Like, oh, I could have done better this way. This is what I used to be able to do. Just to keep himself.
I could make it more efficient and cut time here. Yeah.
Wasn't it the section when he killed the mobsters that we kind of touch on at the end of this, where he says 18 seconds or something, and it ends up being
seconds? Yeah, it's like 19.
Yeah, he's like, plus 9.
But I suppose we should lead up to that. I know we've kind of already jumped into the action.
Right.
So what provokes this action is that Bob has been kind of, he hasn't taken under his wing this young prostitute girl played by Chloe Grace Moretz.
Yeah.
But he's seeing that she's in with some shady characters.
He's befriended her.
Yeah, he's befriended her. She's kind of taken an interest in what he has going on, and presumably he's walking her home, and she gets roughed up by this guy, and then he decides to get involved.
Right.
With that said, let's briefly touch on Chloe Grace Moretz, who I thought was going to have a much more significant role in this movie.
Yeah, me too.
Well, she did in the very beginning, and then she disappeared.
I think it's for the movie's best, though, because I could not get on board with her performance. I don't know about
really.
you.
I liked it a lot.
I liked her.
I'm on the other end.
Okay, that's fine. I just I couldn't. I don't think she successfully convinced me she was not Chloe Grace Moretz.
Well, that's I think a challenge for her in general because it's hard. Like she's very hit or miss, and I haven't seen her in a whole lot of things. But for me, she's just most identifiable as Hit Girl, and that kind of defined her. And she's typecast, for that indefinitely, for me. So anything you see her in now, like she still seems like a child, or juvenile.
Well, she was a child in this.
Well, okay, but her performance here was one of the more convincing performances that I, is the exact opposite takeaway that I got, that I saw her as that character more than the actress.
There's something I saw in her character that translated over to me, especially being that she's like a young underage prostitute for a Russian mob, is that she seemed very unsure of herself, and her voice was always wavering. She seemed like somebody who had trauma.
Yeah.
So constantly I was getting
like I got that too.
She has all the posturing that is believable, but it's like the thing I like about her character is that she's almost like right on the cusp of despair. Where she's thinking about, becoming very hardened and just giving up, So, but she still has that innocence too. So it's a really interesting character to have in there. And I think she did a good job. Like I didn't have any problems with her there.
Okay, maybe it wasn't her, but something about the writing was like, this is like,
did he catch that fish?
I think it's almost kind of like trying to be, what's the word?
It's like I can't place it, but it's a role I've seen. It's a role I've seen played before. It's a role I've seen written before.
So the way she's talking doesn't line up with who she would be and what information she has access to at her age. Right. Like she's talking more of an adult than she is.
She's talking like she's in like a detective noir or something, where she has like these classic sounding lines that I don't feel like trace to a contemporary
either that or she's gone through the full character development of like Stand and Deliver, where she's like completely transformed from what she was to some high functioning person. Like we didn't see her in the movie, so like we didn't understand that happening.
I think the part that I liked the most with her is when she finally sits down with him and they talk. Like that, I think that part for me made the most sense. Early on, I couldn't really tell what their relationship was because it's a little nebulous because you can't tell if they've already met before or if they were just
definitely said that.
They're just both regulars, but they don't really interact a whole lot.
Well, she brought up his book because did he finally catch that fish? As in they've talked about this before.
And he always brings up how she's eaten that pie.
Yeah. No, but the thing is, then when she finally sits down with him, she makes a comment of, "This is breaking protocol, isn't it?" So I think that line there just kind of stuck out to me. Like, so is she coming here like that? I could stretch it enough to believe that they like come regularly and it's an understanding and he's just lonely and needs someone to talk to.
Like it's like someone you just say hi to and then you go.
Yeah, but I don't know. It was kind of.
I thought breaking protocol meant like her coming to the table.
No, but she asked him like it. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, that's what I got too, David. And he he's has still that training of like a Jason Bourne where he's hyper, like he's gotta have to know everything about his situation.
Right.
But also it shows his compassion side. Like he asks her, I thought you were going to get off that refined sugar, meaning drugs, because it's bad for her voice. So he knows obviously that she's talked at some point about singing and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
He just, limits how deep he gets into things at this point. He still holds things at arm's length, but he still has that heart that shines through.
The little things he does say have a lot of impact.
I read that breaking protocol is sort of this is not the norm.
Right.
Me coming over here.
Yeah,
And,
but when it comes from the lips of someone who seems like an escort or a prostitute, you're kind of like, what is this interaction here? So I don't know. I think there's my point basically was what Reese's comment on the writing or what they're saying not really matching up with this scene, or not really coming across as realistic, at least from her end. I like her acting, but there are some sentences she ends up saying that don't really fit for some reason, and I get that.
Well, I noticed that too, and that's actually one of the main issues I have with this movie. And it's that there are a lot of things in here that are kind of cliche, or there are things that you know are going to happen before they happen.
That's the argument that I make for this movie. There's so much of it that is contrived and cliche.
Yeah,
but
it's still
got Denzel at the center of it.
That's the thing. Denzel is the duct tape that patches over
it's a
those
fantasy movie, guys.
cracks,
there's not
At
a
the same
single
time,
one
it
you could
makes-
have me watch that I don't know what's going to happen.
No, I mean,
there's not a single one I've seen.
Well, here's the thing. With vigilante movies and hitman movies, you know how it's going to go. But the cliches I'm talking about are, certain characters saying specific lines or acting this exact way in this moment, and having there's like this, this rubric of default responses and
one-liners
and such.
Yeah, and to build off of that, Noah's, things being formulaic, kind of, that's a somewhat negative thing, but it can still be enjoyable.
Right.
And it's how they deviate from that and innovate from that make it different, but it also highlights the weaknesses of things that are just completely extraneous or contrived. So we get a little bit of both in this movie.
Right.
So this movie came out the exact same month as the first John Wick did, September 2014. I would say, if not for John Wick, this movie actually has some pretty great action sequences. It's so weird that these came out at the same time, because this one definitely evokes that same feeling that John Wick did. It's just not quite as cool. But this first sequence in the when he goes to meet with the Russians and he kind of places the skulls towards them, I thought that was so cool.
That was a John Wick move.
And it is, even though I definitely got those Sherlock Holmes feel, that Sherlock Holmes feel from this, when he's like, okay, this will take me this long. I still liked seeing McCall do his thing and just take these guys out. I thought it was really fun, and it was satisfying to see through the eyes of Slavi as he slowly kind of fades out. McCall just talking to him like, this could have gone differently, and he just kind of just dies. Cool though.
It's much different than how most hitman movies go. Normally, they're trying to pit one guy against 1,000, and he's kind of going against 1,000, but the way that they had these scenes coordinated is such that he makes it, okay, this is going to be a 1v1 right here, and this is going to be a 1v1, and I know I can win the 1v1, so I'm going to do it that way.
The crazy thing is, and I know we're going to make a lot of comparisons to John Wick, and they came out at the same time, so obviously they weren't influenced by each other, at least from as far as I can tell.
They weren't.
But the point is, they both do this thing where we have a silent protagonist, he's not saying much, and people keep wondering who this guy is.
Yeah.
And then by the end of it, they both are like, people keep asking me who I am or what I do.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking I'm back. And they both have that moment.
Yeah.
It's like they're the same.
The nice little flourish that this scene puts on at the end, though, is McCall going like, registering, oh, that was 19 seconds. Not quite as good as he probably used to be. And I really like that. This, like, even though he's kind of aged and he's not as good as at his prime, he's still just whooped these guys. And,
oh, man.
That's just a nice little touch.
Imagine Denzel in The Equalizer versus Keanu, from John Wick.
Yeah.
In a universe of Vigilantes.
It'd be cool. And we'll get into more about why I think John Wick really kind of gets the edge on this one, but we should move on with the story. Go ahead, AJ.
In the meantime, Ralphie withdraws his security guard application and instead takes a second job with his mother at their family restaurant. When McCall learns that the restaurant was set on fire by corrupt policemen, Detectives Harris and Gilly, as an act of extortion, he confronts and beats the officers, forcing them to pay back all the money they had extorted by threatening to publicize their crimes from a video recording McCall had made on his phone. Ralphie then returns to the store and passes his test, becoming a security guard at Home Mart. Vladimir Pushkin, Slavi's boss and a powerful Russian mafia kingpin, sends his enforcer, Teddy Renson, to find and eliminate the culprit. Renson visits Mandy, questioning her about who would have killed Slavi. When Mandy tells him that a nice man, a black man, had come to visit Alina in the hospital, he kills her to cover his tracks by strangling her to death.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the whole time I was like, okay, when does this Ralphie guy come back in? And, like, what's going on with this Ralphie guy?
I like his arc.
No, I like it, but it's just like, it's like 20 minutes of serious movie, and then Ralphie's like, I passed the test!
No. I'm under a certain weight. Yeah. It's like, I don't mind it, but there's something really weird about jumping from this interesting story of, a guy in a diner discovers that this girl is in a bad situation, and then going straight to, I work at Home Mart, and a very Truman Show type of segment where it's just him working and, cracking jokes, telling people, ha ha ha, yeah, no, you're great. Well, it's just
there is
so
a Dexter-ish feel about it where you have somebody who's living a double life.
But
that double life is something that seems so
boring,
comical. Like it's so different, and I don't mind having like a completely different flavor to the film where it's like kind of jumping genres a little bit. But this one's almost like, I wanted to learn more about the girl. I don't.
Meanwhile,
really
we get Denzel playing baseball.
I don't really want this side plot.
Right. Yeah. Plus the whole, it's very in contrast with. We'll learn too. Like he's got these demons in his closet with Vivian, his deceased wife, and all that stuff, and all the regrets and stuff that they really don't delve into, but they spend time on. Hurley or
Ralphie.
Ralphie. Sorry.
Yeah. I agree. It seemed like they didn't... I mean, they had a clear idea that they wanted to put him as kind of that well, maybe not every man, but, everyone loves him. And, who wouldn't love Denzel?
Yeah.
But it was also, you can set that up in the first maybe 10 minutes of the movie and then have it break later and not have to go back and break the, trajectory of the rest of the movie.
Yeah, it is so weird that they insert this Ralphie character into the position that Alina or Terry, whatever her name is,
I agree.
should be. Where she should be like the one that he's like constantly trying to protect throughout this. But she gets cut out. It's almost like she had scheduling conflicts and was like, yeah, I can be here for the beginning and the end of the movie, but I got to go work on this other thing.
She's literally out for an hour.
Yeah, but no, here's Ralphie now that we're supposed to care more about.
I like Ralphie.
No, there's... Yeah, go ahead.
Here's a perspective that I think what they were going for possibly is, call back to the title of this movie, The Equalizer. He empowers everyday people and equals their odds against, whatever they're fighting against or whatever is holding them back.
Right.
So we see him perform that role as the operative with violence and stuff like that, but we also see him as an equalizer helping people around him as an everyday man. And that's a cool dichotomy to explore, but the balance was off.
Yeah.
So he helps Ralphie out and betters him by equalizing his odds and overcoming his obstacles. But, we were introduced to Alina a long time ago, and that seems to be the main power of the movie, yet she's kind of forgotten about.
That's my argument, because I don't think the balance on Ralphie is the issue. I think they do a better job with him than Alina.
Yeah, that's what we're saying the problem
Well,
is.
I think that people were saying that Ralphie felt out of place. I think he felt perfectly in place.
Oh.
I think that Alina was the one who just disappeared.
Well, that's... Or
proportions. It's still the same.
Yeah,
6 of one, half a dozen of another.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the point Reese was making earlier was that, we like this guy, but it should be her instead. There's no real reason for this guy to be attached to the story.
Well, no, that's what AJ was just saying, though, is he's the equalizer. It's portraying another situation.
Yeah, we know, but we're saying, like, the story of Denzel versus the Russian mob or whatever.
It's almost like a Mr. Rogers, like, takes out the corrupt police kind of a thing. There's something
good
about
movie.
Ultimate Showdown.
Yeah, pretty much. But there's something about this character. God, I'm sorry, I forgot his name again.
McCall?
Ralphie.
No, the guy.
Wait,
Ralphie.
Mr. Rogers.
Well,
in a
even that
bloodstained
name,
sweater.
Ralphie. I don't know. It just feels like a children's show issue where it's like, oh yeah. My mom's the only one that takes care of this place, and it burned down, so I gotta help her. I gotta give up my security guard gold or whatever. Yeah. It's like, I'll help you out, Ralphie. The cops, give the money back. I don't know. It
guys,
just feels
he's Bob the Builder confirmed.
I get where they're going. It was trying to explore the oppressed, socioeconomically depressed kind of area with all of, Alina and Ralphie both. But
the cops were involved in both of them, all connected to the Russian mafia.
Right. Yeah. And I don't have a problem with that. There's just something very kind of hokey, I guess, about the way it's done that doesn't really match
it's like
other parts of the film.
You can see the puzzle pieces he's trying to fit in here.
Right.
Like, you can see all the moving parts of this movie when you see stuff like Ralphie.
Yeah.
It's like, the director's like, I need to have this guy in here, right here, and he has to say this. It was less of a character, more of as a device.
Right. But I think
it's a tonal conflict is, I think, what you're getting at. More of sort of the storytelling aspect of it could have been improved, but also the tonal conflict is an issue as well.
Yeah. I think that's basically what we're having trouble with.
Yeah. So let's get to our villain here, which, there's like the big, big bad who we barely see any of in this movie until the end.
Cortez.
But what I would say is the primary villain in this is Teddy Renson, played by Martin Sokas. I'm going to assume that I said that correctly. I think this guy or at least the director and this actor do a good job of centering on this guy as an equal to the Equalizer. He is very threatening, very despicable.
Professional.
Yeah, when he strangles that woman, I'm like, okay, I want this guy to literally die right now.
The thing is, I never considered him on the same level. He seemed like a hateable person who kills people. He never once seemed like a very methodical person. Like, they didn't really show anything that made me think he was.
Well, I never really thought he was equal to Denzel, but I did think he was methodical. It was just he was so out of his league at the same time.
Well, maybe that's it.
Yeah. Well, it's a yin and yang thing. This character has they have that face to face later, which we haven't gotten to later, but he sees people as just like lint or
it's Machiavelli, the prince. You have his to be feared or be loved. Like, they're both very strong, powerful people who are very influential to their surroundings. But one uses fear and force. The other one uses the positive side of encouraging people, and then uses force when necessary.
Exactly.
Yeah, this definitely brings it all together. I loved this whole.
He's a good villain.
Yeah, and it's not even the fact. I mean, he is a good villain, but it's the pitting of those two against each other, and just the audience knowing, man, this guy is so screwed.
It's honestly the perfect villain to be pitted against someone like the Equalizer, where he's straight up a sociopath. Like, he doesn't really exhibit empathy of any kind, at least throughout the film.
But he gets hard nipples.
Vampire nipples.
He has the dumbest tattoos.
Wait, we just have it on in the background. He has an Avenged Sevenfold tattoo on his back.
Really?
Legitimately, he had a skull bat.
He had an Iron Maiden tattoo too.
Oh,
Yeah.
Hey, this guy's
Weird.
got some good taste, okay?
The devil loves rock and roll.
But apart from his tattoos, I think Martin Sokas really, I think for a movie like this to succeed, you have to have a villain that you just want to see just put it 6 feet under.
Yeah.
And I wanted this guy to be dead.
Yeah.
And it got me even further behind, McCall. I want to see him successful in this mission. If you had some bland villain, like in A Good Day to Die Hard or something like that, this movie would be so much less interesting. This guy, I don't think he's very extremely textured, but he's just enough to make me, follow this story to the end and make sure this guy gets a bullet in the head.
You hate him.
So I think he is crucial in that way.
Yeah. He's a slightly more cerebral kind of villain, but at this what?
I don't know.
He's not like a mastermind, but you put him up with the cronies that you always see, like send my troops. Blah, blah, blah.
He gets down and dirty with that other guy to announce that he's in town. Remember?
Look, I'm not saying he's Moriarty. I'm saying he thinks more than the standard villain you see in movies.
I know what
thinks
you
he's
mean.
Moriarty.
Well, he may think.
I don't think he is, but I think he thinks he is.
This is beside the point, though.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
And he did a really good job of like this guy testing his patience step by step. He's like, you say it one more time, I'm gonna freaking
I think aside
club your head.
from I know what you mean by cerebral, but I think to basically sum up his character is that he doesn't have hollow words. He actually follows through on the things he says he's going to do.
He won't kill people.
I guess the point I'm making is more he's not really pompous, and he doesn't overspeak what he can do. Really, he just kind of
does it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a very almost it's not Anton Chigurh, but it's close. Anton Chigurh is a lone wolf type who's just evil, but this guy, he literally doesn't see humans as humans. He just sees them as inanimate objects that need to get out of the way.
Yeah.
And he doesn't care putting them down. So before we move on, I do think the movie kind of loses the plot at this point. This is when we see McCall kind of going out on his own, and it almost seems like an episode of a TV show, if you will.
Yeah.
You're exactly right.
Where McCall is like, I'm going to solve this crime, and then I'm going to solve this crime. And none of those crimes really have anything to do with the central plot. I did want to get y'all's opinion. No, they don't. Because there's he has this one crime where there's these two corrupt officers, and he busts them. And then there's another crime at his work.
That had to do with Ralphie.
There's another crime at his workplace where there's a lady who, there's a guy sticks up his work, and he's like, give me all the cash. And
the guy goes to Home Mart.
Yes.
to steal money.
I thought that was a little odd.
But both of these scenes do not tie into the plot at all.
Except for emphasizing the Equalizer aspect.
I know, and that's why I wanted to ask you, would this have been better revealed at the beginning that this is what this guy does?
Yeah.
Or...
Yeah.
Because I feel like we take this side... It's just a subplot that doesn't belong, or
I feel it doesn't feel like a natural progression.
You're already invested in this story, and then okay, I guess we're gonna go here now.
There's an assumed character arc that we don't actually get, where we see Bob being kind of more withdrawn and kind of interact. He's known and he's friendly, but he's doesn't extend himself. To involve himself in other people's lives, and then we see him kind of withdraw from his shell, and then start being involved in helping people against his own, I guess, maybe better judgment or something like that. That's the assumed character arc where we see him, becoming more active as a vigilante, but we don't really see that beginning part where he came from. So, there's not that flow.
If I just reorganizing this a little bit, I have no problem first being introduced to this Terry Alina character. And you can have that scene at the beginning where he knows they have this sort of understanding, and he sees that she's in a bad situation. immediately following that, you can have that escalation of him like, oh, I can intervene in these things. I have the ability to. So, for instance, like bringing that woman's ring back. That's a simple like, oh, I just get it back from that guy. Following that up with Ralphie's issue where they basically, the arsonist, like, you know, demolished his mother's business. And then he solves that. And then he meets up with Terry Alina again in the diner and walks with her, sees that happen. He's like, all right, you know what? I can do this, you know, and then solves it. You know, that makes a natural progression.
Yeah. They trim off the fat, and like Reese said, if you had this in the beginning, you can see all these episodes and you have the secretive aspect of who's doing this.
Right.
It's him, and you see that dual nature of this person, but it's kind of we're discovering it as the audience and as the rest of the people in the scene are, instead of, you know, showing the full process. That's just too much,
right?
Unnecessary screen time.
Yeah, and it just, you've built up momentum in the story,
right?
And then it just seems like they're putting on the brakes. Whereas I don't mind going on this little diversion, but I would have liked the diversions to at least serve the plot, like at least tie them in some way. And just totally, I totally agree that this just should be placed at the beginning, as you said, like this not masked, but
right,
unknown vigilante kind of helping out. And
or all these crimes are at least in the ring of the Russian mob, instead of just random incidents of some thug or that guy.
Yeah. All right. With that said, let's move on with the story.
After finding video footage of McCall entering the club where Slavi was killed, Renson visits McCall at his apartment, posing as a police officer, and later makes 2 attempts to capture him. However, McCall escapes after killing a hitman who tries to ambush him at the diner and knocking out one of Renson's associates. McCall then visits an old friend and DIA colleague, Susan Plummer, who uses her resources to give him information on Pushkin and his operations. Plummer also informs McCall that Teddy Renson's true name is Nikolai Ichenko, a former member of the Russian secret police with Spetsnaz training. Stepping up his actions against Pushkin, McCall subdues Frank Masters, who is a crooked detective in Pushkin's payroll and has been helping Renson, while forcing him to help gain access to one of Pushkin's local money laundering operations. Once there, McCall holds the gangster running his operation at gunpoint, subdues his cronies, and orders Masters to inform the police of the money laundering operation. From Masters, McCall obtains a memory stick loaded with information about Pushkin's illegal activities, which he emails to the FBI. McCall then confronts Ichenko at a restaurant, revealing that he knows his history and pledging to bring down Pushkin's criminal enterprise. When McCall destroys a container ship Pushkin used to smuggle goods, Pushkin has had enough and orders Ichenko to kill McCall.
Didn't he already try to kill McCall?
Right. He's had enough. Yeah. Now he's had enough.
Wait. No, multiple times before he said he wanted him alive.
No, yeah, he did. But it's just funny.
I want him, but this time dead, because I'm tired of his shenanigans.
You got that convenient flash drive with everything the FBI didn't already know.
Yeah. I'm sorry, you mean memory stick?
Even though a consultant knew all this information.
I love the line when he says, find him or I'll get someone that can. And I'm like, why don't you just get someone that can then? Like, that just seems like a waste of resources.
Yeah.
Do it or do it myself. You can just do it yourself then, maybe.
That said, I really like this sit down that McCall has with Renson in the restaurant.
That was awesome.
Well, even before that, when this guy, it's Pushkin, right?
Yeah.
When he first encounters him at his apartment. Yes.
Yeah.
That's not Pushkin. Pushkin's the end villain.
Okay. Well,
Rodchenko.
Rodchenko.
Yeah.
But when he meets him face to face at his apartment, I love scenes like that where you have the protagonist and antagonist meet each other face to face and kind of sizing each other up, but also putting on like intimidations towards one another.
McCall's like, "Don't you have a card to give me?" I love that.
But there's also this invisible wall where they can't do anything at that moment.
Yep.
You know that I love moments like that. Scenes like that are my favorite.
Yeah, they're like an equal mix of uncomfortable, but
Right.
very like, oh, this is.
It's like,
this
I
is
know who
great.
you are, you know who I am.
Kind of like
Yep.
Alec Baldwin in The Shadow when he goes to the restaurant.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, unnecessary, but it made me think of that.
Yeah. Before this whole sit-down restaurant sequence, we have McCall heading out randomly to go see Bill Pullman, who plays Brian Plummer, and Melissa Leo, who plays Susan Plummer. And these are apparently two people I guess he had worked with in his past, though more closely with Susan Plummer. Mm-hmm. I still didn't get a sense as to what he did in his
before
previous job, and I was like, okay, what did he do?
I think I kind of like that. I kind of like not knowing, but at least it's kind of like you had the suspicion that he was, special ops or something. Like he had some kind of top job, government wise, and is like living a new life. But
I love that Bill Pullman's in here just to like shake his hand and then make like some kind of offhand comment, and then that's it.
And bring a file or something.
No, it was much more Melissa Leo. I just thought like it was funny seeing him here, and then he just like has like one line and he's out.
That's it. Yeah.
But yeah, that was a nice little diversion there. I didn't learn anything from any of that other than he has connections and he's worked with something.
Yeah, he has connections. He can get information that he needs.
Yeah.
Do you buy the rapport between Susan and Bob?
Not really.
Not really at all.
I just kind of waved it away, like, oh yeah, okay, they know each other.
It was fine. Like it was passable. It was like bare minimum. Like okay, there's like some history here, but I didn't get the sense that they were like really close,
old friends, or
yeah. It was just like a mild exposition, but still not telling me much.
Right.
But then we do have our sit down between what's the main bad?
Rachinko.
Rachinko?
Renson was the alias he was going by, and Achinko is his actual name.
Yeah, Renson. I'll just say Renson.
That's easier to say.
Renson. The sit down at the diner is so good. The moment where his henchman goes away, and then like 5 seconds later, Bob comes back and says, he's not coming back, and just like places the bloody sunglasses right in front of him on the table.
So
and they
good.
just have this like really cool just face to face.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, here's how it's gonna go.
What do you see when you look me in the
Yeah.
face?
Yeah.
Nothing.
That's where this movie is golden.
Yeah.
Just any moment with either one or the other, like between the two of them in particular.
Any moment that
just
is
golden.
It is more like a silent location where you allow Denzel Washington to just act. Like those are the successful scenes,
Right.
And he totally sells this moment for me. And it's like, but the only problem with this is like this totally diffused any kind of tension I had about the bad guy ever one-upping Bob. I was like, okay, this villain's never gonna.
Yeah.
Like, this guy's too top tiered for you to.
That diffuses some of the tension, but for me, that was so good.
It is really satisfying, though.
It was really satisfying.
Yeah.
But it still was like, okay, I'm a little less worried about Renson getting the jump on McCall. I don't know how y'all felt.
I just thought it was nice to see him way out of his league, even though he's this high up sex trafficker dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll also say Renson. There's a bit of like poor script writing here.
Yeah.
Where he's literally just like spelling out to the audience that he's a sociopath.
Oh yeah.
Like it's like,
I never felt anything.
Yeah.
They actually
about
say so. It's
people.
true.
Yeah.
yeah, like it's just really shoved down your throat. And there's so many scenes where he's like, by the way, I don't care. I'm a sociopath. Like it's
Well, that scene with
It's kind of like the OCD stuff. It's like kind of just a word thrown out there to describe a character, and they kind of just go through the motions.
just hand waves away.
Yeah.
Yep.
when Denzel's with that plumber character, she even says he's a sociopath.
Yeah. She actually literally does say
She
it.
literally
That's
does.
But it's like, yeah, I get it. Like you don't have to spell this out.
Yeah,
to me
well,
in
it was
every
already
scene.
apparent to begin with that he is a sociopath.
Stop
based
acting
on
like
his
a
actions.
sociopath.
Yeah. But
And then there's the scene where we already kind of talked about the whole flash drive memory stick
Yeah.
scene, but it's like, oh look, this goes all the way up. There's all these people that are getting money from this. This is, it's cheesy, but it's fine.
Yeah, it's in general a pretty cliche movie.
Yeah. And then to cap it all off, this scene came out of nowhere, but the scene where McCall just like blows up that ship or the supply. I don't even know what he blew up, but he blew up something.
Oil tankers of some kind.
And then it
container ship.
Yeah, container ship.
And you get the classic cool guy walking away from an explosion.
Actually, this is the epitome of that.
And I will say, like, the movie disarmed me a little bit from the critical side of my brain, where I was like, okay, yeah, I can dig.
I'm on board.
I can dig Denzel Washington walking away from this massive explosion, even though it kind of came out of nowhere. I thought it was cool.
It was awesome.
I enjoy the explosion cliche. It's fun.
It's really one of those things, though, where you're like, yeah, this is, I know this is dumb.
Yeah.
But I kind of like it.
It always brings me back to the other guys with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg when that insurance agency blows up and he's like, there's no way you can just stand here and walk away from an explosion. That's bullshit.
I love the other guys.
I know, it's a great movie.
All right. If no one else has
David
anything.
Harbour.
David Harbour,
David Harbour.
yep. He's in this.
David Harbour. I don't think he adds too much to the movie, but he's
Definitely doesn't take away from it.
I like
He wasn't
this,
a detractor.
Yeah. I like this character device, though, where, you know, you have the villains and you have the good guys, but he's one where he's acting as the corrupted, you know?
Yeah.
And so I like that kind of interaction where you get Bob basically talking to him about, like, do the right thing, essentially. You remember? And I think that is what this movie needs, especially with the messaging that it has, is like you have a choice. So it's nice to show a person that takes the other side rather than choosing wrong, you know?
Equalizing the other direction.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I only saw in his performance, though, lip service to say that he used to be a good cop.
Right.
I didn't believe that he, like, oh, he actually did used to be a good cop. All I saw was him just saying it.
Yeah.
I did kind of buy what he was, I mean, not fully, but like he kind of got put in a bad situation, then just kind of built and you're like trapped and, you know, you have to kind of go along with it because you're already in too deep.
Right.
Like I kind of bought that where he was like, you know, he's just frantic. Like I understand like he's a bad guy and then something snowballed and now he's where he is now.
Yeah. And the movie's already so long and you're trying to add backstory to other people. His was completely unnecessary to add in stuff.
I imagine his character is just kind of that situation where you're not inherently a bad guy, but you know something bad maybe happened to him, and then he covered it up for himself.
Yeah. But I agree with Irina. It's needed the kind of good texture that this movie needed beyond the cliche formula.
Yeah. Right.
So. I will say I really like that interrogation scene in the car. I love how efficient McCall is and how just easily he's able to set up these situations. And then on top of that, I think McCall has one of the coolest like disarming moments in this when what I don't know David Harbour's the officer's name, but when he takes him back to the distribution area where all the money's getting like packaged, and he just disarms that guy straight up. That was
like, is that an HK? Let me see it. Can I see it? And you're like, you mean like this? Because you knew like he was gonna take the bait and you know, put it in his face. Yeah. And right then and there, like in a split second,
that was good.
Flipped.
It was so cool. Just watching, like I watched that scene 3 times in a row. Just like, wow.
Nice.
I think he actually did it too. But yeah, I really liked that.
There are a lot of good action sequences in this. I think that for me was a highlight. I think they crafted that well. It's spaced out nicely enough where I don't feel it's overpowering. Yeah. There's enough moments of rest between moments of action that makes them kind of pop out, and they're well done.
And I suppose I should say, I think this movie's actually paced very well for a 2-hour and 12-minute movie. I do think there are those unneeded diversions at times where they add as I said, the crime solving, or I mean the crime fighting moments.
Baseball.
Yeah, like that didn't quite or didn't really need to be there, but I'm engaged with this movie all throughout, and I'm like, okay, this is there. I was
It never feels too taxing at all.
Yeah. And it's contemplative enough where it's not like, okay, this is dumb. You're trying to be smarter than it really is. Like,
Right.
It still adds a little bit of layer to the cheesiness.
Right. Yes.
And then you brought up the little gun flip. And was that the only time that this character handled a gun in this movie?
It might have been.
I think
well,
it
he
was.
does it.
It
He
was.
does it at the end. The very end, he has a gun.
Yeah.
He has a nail gun, not a
No, he
actual
has a
gun.
real gun at the end.
He does?
He takes out the main guy with the gun.
No,
That was
that's
a
a
nail
nail
gun.
gun.
Was that a nail
That's a
gun?
Yeah.
nail
It was
gun.
a nail gun. Everything was like tools from the store.
Not a
Which
single
is like kind
time.
of a theme that he doesn't use a gun. Like
Yeah.
kind of like Batman. Really.
Yeah. That's cool. That is. I thought he had some.
That's
like,
why I said that
submachine-
earlier.
I thought he had like a submachine gun in his hand at the end of there.
Yeah. It's like a weird thing where you can almost associate that with his promise to whoever that person is, that he wouldn't, go back into
His
it,
wife?
even though he is.
Whoever that person is, his
Well,
wife.
yeah.
Because it's also
But
kind
her
of
name's
dumb. Like,
Vivian.
Yeah.
Vivian, there you go.
you go into that situation knowing you're going to be ambushed by all these like mobsters with automatic rifles, and you don't bring at least a handgun or something to protect yourself.
It's like a
man.
smoker using those nicotine gum things.
I guess I'll use the nail gun this time. Doesn't count.
Gotta lug this table saw with me.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, AJ, you want to finish out the plot there?
Echenko and his henchmen go to the store and take Ralphie, Jenny, and several others of McCall's co-workers hostage, threatening to kill them if McCall does not surrender. After arriving at the store, McCall kills Echenko's henchmen one by one using booby traps constructed with items in the store while rescuing Ralphie. However, McCall is wounded in the process during a struggle between himself and the second-to-last of Echenko's henchmen. Ralphie comes back to pull the injured McCall out of the store, but is shot in the leg himself by Echenko's last henchman. After getting Ralphie to escape and killing the last henchman, McCall confronts Echenko and kills him with a nail gun. 3 days later, McCall travels to Moscow, kills all of Pushkin's guards at his mansion, and tricks him into electrocuting himself. After his return to the United States, McCall is approached by Alina outside a neighborhood grocery store, learning that she has started a new life after being freed from Slavy's control and having found a job. She thanks McCall for giving her a second chance. McCall is inspired to continue using his skills to help people in need and posts an online advertisement, now identifying himself as the Equalizer.
All right, so we get our Home Alone rated R version.
Rambo. That's what I'm thinking.
Or Rambo.
Rambo in a home mart.
Yes. Honestly, I kind of enjoyed all of this.
I loved
my
it.
favorite part of the movie.
Me too.
Like, it was so cool seeing that first henchman just get hung by this barbed wire.
What
gosh,
is the
that
sand doing
hurt.
on the
And the
ground?
next guy gets speared by one of those branch
trimmers.
cutters
Oh,
or hedge
branch
trimmers.
cutter, you're right.
Yeah, and then there's a freaking drill kill in the back of the head.
So
And
good.
okay, explain how'd that microwave blow up? Did he? What happened there?
We were talking about there in the movie. He put O2 in there.
Okay, sure.
Oxygen tanks. Those explode. Those
So-
are highly combustible.
So I really liked this sequence of just or this whole set piece of McCall just having the upper hand on all of these people, turning
Yeah.
the lights out and just taking them all out by one by one, and seeing Rinson just slowly or just become more and more unnerved as things
Right.
starting to see the sheen fall on him
Yeah.
and him actually start to be a little nervous about
Right.
oh, maybe I won't make it out of this thing.
Yeah.
You know what this is reminiscent of? 28 Days Later.
Is it?
Oh,
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. Where he's
The-
coming back and he's killing off everyone one by
Exactly.
one.
That's right, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's kind of that,
Very
Yeah.
similar. But I also agree with
Situation.
David Rambo. He's booby trapping all
In
these
the
things.
woods.
Oh yeah. I love it. I love a good booby trap.
I love a good booby trap.
But then the final kill of Rinson, or what's his Russian name again? It's like
Shigarash Barushta.
Teddy.
Richinko or whatever.
Yeah, I thought was fairly underwhelming. Like I was expecting more of a mano fight between these
Yeah,
two.
because that guy sucks. Like,
Okay.
he didn't actually have the skill.
Okay, I know you're about to push back on this. I would have liked I don't want them to go completely toe-to-toe and have this big brawl that lasts 10 minutes. But I did want to see some resistance instead of Bob just kind of sneaking up on him and, oh, I got you there. Got your arm, got your other arm.
I'm just going to say it matched everything I saw in the movie.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
going
at
to
least use some deck screws instead of finishing nails.
Yeah.
You're never going to hang him on a wall with that.
I thought that was for me that was kind of a cherry on top. The fact that this guy was nothing to him, and he didn't even answer the guy's question. He didn't have a one-liner.
That was actually the best part.
Yeah, for me,
who are you?
He just this guy was nothing to him, so he decided, I'm just gonna put you down, and you'll just see me looking at you.
Well, I
as your last memory.
Well, I could have used like one last like chest puffing moment from the villain where he's just like shouting out into like, just something like
where he loses it,
trying to coax him out of the darkness, and then he comes out and he's like, okay, and then just straight up kills him.
He's a sociopath. He doesn't do that.
I liked the way it ended as far as that goes, but I see your perspective.
Yeah. I wasn't completely underwhelmed by it. I was still happy when, he breathed his last breath.
Yeah.
But
use a little bit more edge.
Yeah, just a little bit. Like it doesn't have to, especially with the way this movie's going where it's like kind of cheesy already. You might as well just milk it a little bit. But
well, his part of his threat is because he's kind of like an unhinged force of rage almost. Like when he gets into beating, he's like really into it. So that scene where he is beating up someone for just talking back to him essentially and not doing what he's wanting him to do, if you could see just a little bit of that in his final scene, like this should be completely enraging him that someone has outwitted or is, killing off all his men. He should be livid. So like just seeing that kind of burst forth more in the final scenario would fall in line with his character, being a narcissist and a sociopath.
Okay, so in that moment, he asks them as he's dying, like, who are you? Do you guys think that it was smart that he said nothing, or do you think he should have said a piece of lint?
No, I think it's fine. He didn't say anything. It's kind of like, you're not worth my time. Like, yeah.
Okay, so before he even said, who are you? I was making a joke that he was going to say, who are you? And he was going to say that. So when he said, who are you? I was like, oh, he's going to do it. He's going to say he's a piece of lint. I thought that would have been hilarious.
I bet you they had some sort of outtake somewhere where they did that.
Yeah.
I'm a bottle cap. I'm a Lego in your foot.
A Lego.
A Lego you stepped on at midnight.
Ow!
Clean up on aisle 4.
I would have loved that at the end. Okay, so that kind of closes out the main, crux of the story here. Then let's talk about how this all wraps up with Pushkin. How did y'all feel about this sequence? I feel like we could have used a little bit more of Pushkin to kind of really establish him as this really evil overseer.
He's like a nothing character.
Yeah, you just kind of like, once we get to him, I'm like, who's that guy? Like, I get that he's a...
Isn't he like Cortez from Road to El Dorado, where you're like, oh, he's the big bad. And then you get to him and he's like, oh, and he's gone.
Yeah. Like, I got that, he's got tattoos, and they've kind of talked about him throughout this, but I never really got the sense that he had much hand in anything that was going on, but...
He didn't. He was just commanding.
Yeah, he's the Don that's at the top that really, they've got their situation so they don't get their hands dirty. They're, by proxy for everything. Yeah. So I thought it was fitting, and then he obviously was caught unawares, but he still got the ego and kind of trying to call his bluff. And I enjoyed the way that Bob, kind of baited him into basically giving him the rope to hang himself, which is kind of his style. He doesn't ever, just take his 9 out and bust a cap. He just, okay, here you go, grab your phone and shock yourself. So that was enjoyable.
Yeah, I loved seeing McCall just sitting there, switching on and off the lights. And I think, Noah, you said it like possibly to disorient his vision.
Yeah, that I was thinking that the reason why he was flipping the lights on and off is so that he wouldn't ever adjust to the darkness and kind of see that trap that he was laying at the area. And it was just kind of a disorientation technique rather than it just being for an effective like, hey, I'm the boogeyman, I'm gonna mess with you now.
Oh.
Yeah.
But I really do like their back and forth. I still didn't get as much satisfaction seeing him die than Rinsen though. So it was a little muted compared to what happened before, but it was still a satisfying close to that arc. It almost seems like this character should have been something that carried on into the sequel.
I thought
it would have been funny if or enjoyable if like Rinsen basically turned tail and left and maybe went back to this Dawn.
Yeah.
And he's like off doing something. And Denzel Washington, I'm just calling him Denzel
McCall.
now.
Yeah.
Bob gets to this place, kills everyone off, and, you know, Rinsen arrives and he's there. Like, he followed him all the way to Russia. So, like, I don't know. That would be a satisfying ending for me, but...
I agree with you. I think that would have been better.
I'm still fine with him, like, going to this guy and basically... he's essentially pulling the weed out from the root. Like, he's trying to eradicate all of it, you know. So like that, it makes sense. Like I'm not as bothered by the inclusion of this scene. It's just kind of fun and it's quick, so you don't have to worry about it too much.
I'm with you on that one. I think I imagine what they had going on was, well, we don't know if we're going to do a sequel or not, so
might as well wrap it up. And
then they decided to put the big bad there and kill him off and have it be a satisfying ending.
I guess you could say Pushkin, Pushk out.
All right. So Alina comes back in on the scene. She is looking a lot better. Does not look like what she did before.
It's like night and day.
Yeah. And I guess she's like a little more serious about what she actually wants to do. This was almost like, oh yeah, she's in this.
Yeah.
But it was still, I'm glad it was included.
Right.
Like
it needed to be. Closed
the loop there on that character. How did y'all feel about the actual conclusion to this movie?
It was good, but you're right. She was gone for over an hour. You know, like
if
she
not
was
more
there.
Than that.
Yeah, if not more. Like she was there for the majority of the beginning. Then she disappears because he has to do his vigilante justice, right? Right? Yep. Vigilante justice, and then he finishes it, and she's like, "I'm here. Thank you."
Well, she doesn't even really like. Well, she thanks him for encouraging her to follow her dreams, but she has no idea he was actually helping directly.
Yeah. Little did you know.
Yeah.
I just pulled off a 1v like 3,000
Russian mafia job.
Thanks to you, there's a power vacuum. Now I'm at the top of the slave trading ring.
There you go.
Yeah, satisfying conclusion.
Yeah.
Could have used maybe a little bit more there, at least with that character sprinkled throughout the film, but it still gave me closure on that at least.
Right.
Yeah, if she wasn't there, that'd be egregious.
Yes,
oh, yeah.
Exactly. And then this guy officially proclaims himself the Equalizer, thus, evoking the title of the film.
With the cheesy Craigslist ad?
Yeah. I'm down with it. This movie's like, it's got this energy throughout, so I'm like, yeah, that tracks.
He's got a taste for it now. He has a hobby.
Apparently that was a sort of a homage to the original show where he put out a classified ad with the exact same verbiage.
Yeah. Oh, and I've been meaning to ask you, AJ, how closely does this hew to any of the show?
I don't know. I'm not an expert on the show. I mean, I saw a couple episodes, that just so I knew I was aware of it. I never watched it religiously or anything.
Yeah.
Well, if you watched it twice, though, you have to have more than we do.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got it there, David. The little classified ad, alludes to his, little classified in the newspaper saying, if you need help, contact me and I'll equalize the situation for you.
Well, the nice thing watching this movie, too, is, I don't get the impression that you need to know the source material to enjoy it, I feel like there are a lot of movies out there where you feel like you need to watch the original to appreciate what you are seeing before you. But this seems to hold its own without knowing much about the series, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right. With that, let's close out the story portion of this podcast, we're going to take a quick break, and on the other end, we will talk about this franchise, get into what critics thought, give our brief reviews, and get into some box office. So we'll see y'all then.
Yeah.
Welcome back. Let's talk about The Equalizer. David, you have our scores in a bowl there.
Score.
You want to pull those at random, and we're going to review this movie.
All right. First one is Irina with a 7.5.
All right.
I think this movie is entertaining for this brand of movie that it is. Other than some moments I'm not quite clear what happened or what's supposed to be happening based on dialogue that's a little confusing to me. I think it was enjoyable. The pacing was good for me. If it had extended any scenes longer, I would have been tired out and frankly bored. But I think Denzel Washington does an excellent job of being charismatic as he usually is and sort of drawing your attention. I had issues with the way certain scenes were lined up. It didn't make sense from the progression that I would have expected from building a character like this one. So 7.5, enjoyable, not stellar, but it's fun, and I would probably end up watching it again because there are some really wonderful action sequences that honestly are my favorite. The whole timing one, and then the final showdown in the warehouse.
The Rambo.
Yep.
All right.
Next score. Reese with a 7.
Yeah, I was fully going into this movie thinking like, okay, this is like a Now You See Me and then Now You See Me 2, where it's just kind of this stopgap between our mini-series where it's just like, okay, we're going to kind of get into the mood of this vigilante thing. It's going to be not a great movie, but, you know, we'll get through it together. But this movie actually kind of surprised me. I enjoyed it. And I think that's mainly the Denzel factor, but also mixed with Antoine Fuqua's ability to just really competently direct a film, despite how, you know, rote or cliche some of the plot points are or the writing is. I was actually significantly engaged with this movie, despite it being 2 hours and 10 minutes long, which is longer than it feels. The pacing is really good. It's constantly doling out good action and then good like character to character moments where you're like, okay, now this gets me hyped for the next action scene. It's just very well paced out, and at the core of it, you do have Denzel Washington who really elevates any property that he's in. He tends to choose films like this where they're kind of normally they'd be kind of a middle of the road action film with nothing really new to provide, but then he elevates them just with his charisma and his he has a sense of like pathos without even trying. Like just him being there, you see like the sadness behind his eyes, but also like, I'm gonna mess you up. So yeah, I as a kind of in the same year as John Wick, this movie really did a good job of kind of holding its own. It's not as good as John Wick, not as impressive, but it's a decent action flick, and I was, you know, really well invested in everything that was happening. And that's actually I also have to throw it out to the villain in this. Did a really good job of, you know, making me hate him. So there's that as well. So fun movie. Was kind of surprised by it, but not enough to really bump it up to a high score. But right. Yeah, The Equalizer, decent movie.
Yeah.
7.
All right. Next up, David. with a 7.5.
All right.
This one was a little hard to rank. I actually really enjoyed it. I think that I was able to turn off that part of my brain that is more analytical. I feel like these vigilante type movies require it because I don't know any of them that have a sense of true realism. This one was along that line more, and I think because Denzel just sells it. But it was good. It was enjoyable, and I think that I would watch it again. I think that it's above average. I almost gave it an 8. I think that I enjoyed it a lot, but I mean, there are moments where it just falls flat. It has high highs, low lows. But in the end, you know, it's a returnable movie, and I'm kind of looking forward to the second one.
Yeah,
so,
it's no Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, though, is it?
Yeah, it's a little bit better, half a point better.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's right. You did give that a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I did. No Yetis playing football in this movie.
But there is baseball.
There is baseball. I don't know if that's the same thing, but sports ball.
Rubbing his chin now. There is baseball, though.
Seven.
That's that
But
0.5
Yetis
difference.
weren't playing it.
Oh, that's true.
right.
Yeah.
All right, Noah with a debated 7.5.
Yeah, I had a really good time with this movie. I like Denzel Washington, and I think he carries this movie on the back through the Sahara
Desert.
through the Sahara Desert. Yeah, you know. But yeah, I had a really good time with this movie. The main issue, I'd say, is just through some of the cliches. They didn't really bring Alina into it enough, and I just kind of found a couple of issues along the way that made me wonder, like, well, do they really know what they're doing here? But ultimately, they ended up doing a really good thing with the villain and the main character and their whole dynamic. So I'd have to give it a 7.5, just for sheer fun. And,
All right. All right, last but not least, we have AJ with a 6.5.
All right.
So, yeah, it was almost a 7 here. And this is a very respectable like score for this kind of thing. And so I'll kind of make the appropriate analogy here with the Equalizer. This is a mass appealing, you know, kind of popish rock song that's got the bass boost applied to it, so that everybody kind of digs into it. You lose a little bit of the hi-fi on the treble and stuff. That's not, you don't have the detail for, you know, something extremely nuanced or anything like that. But it's an enjoyable ride. I think it's definitely, the strengths are, you know, the acting for sure. Really prop up, you know, a moderate to mediocre story that's kind of, you know, pulling from formulaic vigilante stories that we see a lot. And it is a very saturated genre, so that's where it's kind of doesn't do a whole lot to stand out, you know, among the crowd, besides the stellar acting from Washington, Moretz, and everyone else involved. And it does have a very solid villain. Not the most memorable villain, but definitely solid, and that's something that's important in my criteria for any movie, really. So that really does a good job there. Plus cinematography, I enjoyed a lot. We didn't really talk too much about it, but it seemed like, I don't know if it's Sony, their productions of whatever cameras they use, probably Sony, that would make sense. Sony cameras, color everything. I mean, it looks great. The shots are somewhat artistic enough. I mean, that's the directorial choice as well. But then there's some other scenes that are just like, what is this shot randomly thrown in here?
Yeah.
So it's an enjoyable ride, and it is rewatchable. It doesn't stand out from its peers a whole lot. I think what would have elevated it, and it really kind of tried to tease it a little bit, would have been a little bit more introspective character growth or character history, and, you know, kind of chopping out some of the second act sag a little bit with some of the, you know, extraneous side quests he goes on. Like, I get the direction they were trying to go with, but I mean, there could have been a bit more detail. So it's an enjoyable ride. You got the nice bassy punch to this pop song here, but doesn't sparkle.
Don't stop believing my journey.
You said something that resonated with me with that whole, you know, side quest thing, and this is This is like in a game whenever you have that main mission where, you know, you're on a huge time crunch, but you know what, let's help this grandma like stir her porridge.
Or get the cat out of the tree.
and that was that little baseball bit in the middle there.
Yeah. All right, AJ, you want to crunch those numbers for us and give us our consensus?
Okay, so group average is a 7.2.
Okay.
And that ties it with, where'd it go? 28 Days Later and Ocean's 8.
All right.
Just above Blade 2, and we've got quite a few 7.3s. World War Z, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, and Ocean's 11.
All right.
Okay.
Interesting.
It seems like a lot of films find their way into the 7s.
Yeah. We got a huge
enjoyable
field of movies there,
but not masterful.
Right.
All right. So, on the whole, I think we generally liked it. I would say it was mixed to positive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this movie, I think, maybe surprised a couple of us in how enjoyable it was. I was really, at least I had my expectations very low for this one. Not like astronomically low, but I was like, okay, this is going to be your typical action movie.
Right.
I know exactly what I'm getting. And yes, it is when you actually look at the plot, or at least just break it down, but there's
or
just
especially if you were to watch this and do a double feature watching John Wick immediately after. You can see the huge difference.
Yeah. It's really just that Denzel Washington factor, though.
Right.
Like, he really lifts it a bar higher than it normally would be. Okay, so let's move on to the critics. On Rotten Tomatoes, critics gave this a 60% out of 100. So that's more falling in line with AJ's review of this film. And the film has an audience score of 76%. The consensus on Rotten Tomatoes reads, "The Equalizer is more stylishly violent than meaningful, but with Antoine Fuqua behind the camera and Denzel Washington dispensing justice, it delivers."
All right.
That's
accurate.
That's about right.
Yeah. On Metacritic, this movie has a 57 out of 100 and a 7.0 out of 10 score from audiences. And on IMDb, this movie has a 7.2 out of 10.
We're on the money.
Exactly with those guys.
Yeah. We're in agreement with most audience reviews on this film. Let's move on to the box office. This movie released on September 26th in 2014, which is exactly a week after John Wick. And it released against The Box Trolls, and The Maze Runner was already playing for a week in the theaters at this time. Yep. So the movie is budgeted at $55 million, though there have been some reports saying it's a little higher, but the official report on Box Office Mojo is $55 million, so I'm going with that. What did this movie do worldwide at the box office? David.
Repeat the budget again?
$55 million. Good job listening.
Can you use it in a sentence?
I was watching a guy get strangled by barbed wire. Sorry. I'm going to go with 125.
All right. Noah.
200 millions.
200 millions.
I love that one.
AJ.
So Denzel's a high draw, but it was, late summer, September?
September, yep.
150.
150. Arena.
135.
I'm boxed in.
All right. Noah with 200 is the closest.
Dang.
This movie grossed $192 million
right.
worldwide.
Pretty close.
Yep, off a $55 million budget. $102 million of that was domestic. So this movie really performed in the States.
Which is what you want.
I think it had like a $34 million opening, and it legged it out to over $100 million, which that pretty much guarantees you a sequel, especially when your budget is $55 million and you still perform overseas. This movie did over 3 times its budget. So it's safely kind of in the green zone for like, okay, people like this. It got decent enough reviews. The audience scores were higher than the critics. So audiences like this character. They're willing to, probably willing to shell out for a sequel as well.
Yeah, this movie looks pretty budget too. Like they did a good job for everything. I was gonna say most budget looked like it went towards both Denzel and the explosion.
Yeah, it was the biggest budget points were probably Denzel and then everything else.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought the cinematography was good.
Yeah,
it is good.
I really actually like the cinematography. A lot of the the establishing shots of the settings were really well done, tastefully colored and all that.
More what I was saying is that just the expenses were pretty low. Everything they did wasn't a huge spectacle. It was more, in this shop and with a lot of practical effects. So it was actually a compliment for the movie.
Yeah. So this movie successfully launched a franchise of sorts, the Equalizer franchise, based off of its pretty decent reviews and good box office. And it's also the first film to spawn a Denzel Washington franchise.
Sequel.
This is the first time that Denzel Washington has signed on for a sequel to a film.
Really?
That is so weird. You'd think he would have.
Yeah, I know. It is weird. So this was it took a while for the sequel to come out. It took 4 years. He with the same director, he worked on the Magnificent Seven remake with Antoine Fuqua, and that came out, and then they got to work on the Equalizer 2. So this movie really did a good job of, really planting its feet in there and saying like, hey, we're not going away. We're getting another one of these. And there's really not much else to say on the franchise side of things because this really did successfully kick it off. It wasn't like a blowout success in the way that like Liam Neeson's Taken series was, but it was still like a moderate hit enough to, guarantee that they should move forward with something else. And apparently Denzel enjoyed playing this character enough to return to it. So there you go. That's the franchise side of this.
I wonder what happens after the second movie.
Well, I guess we'll see. There's going to be a more extensive discussion on what happens after Equalizer 2. I'm not saying that the franchise is dead after that, but there's definitely more going on in terms of the Equalizer with at the end of that film versus this one.
Legit.
So that obviously leads to what we're talking about next week. What's it going to be, guys?
Spy Kids.
Mary Poppins?
Yeah, Spy Kids and Mary Poppins. Next week we're talking about The Equalizer 2, also directed by Antoine Fuqua, starring Denzel Washington. Y'all have a good night. Or good morning, or good day. Goodbye.
Have a good day.
All these episodes, and that's the one time you realize maybe they're not listening to it at
Have
night.
a good.
I was a pip. Yo, you were a pimp? No, not a pimp. A pip. P-I-P. Pip.